Our headlines today. A third day of delays and disruption expected at the Port of Dover and Channel Tunnel after 2 days of gridlock.
Work has been taking place overnight to try to shift 1,500 lorries from the motorway. Here in Dover, it's already getting busy, and at Eurotunnel, some passengers say they've been forced to spend the night sleeping in their cars.
Conservative leadership candidates Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss both pledged tighter controls on immigration as their campaigning steps up a gear. We begin with the front pages and the Conservative leadership contest being fought on the front of some of them. The Sunday Telegraph reports a pledge by Rishi Sunak to introduce a cap on refugee numbers if he becomes Prime Minister.
That picture needs explanation. That's Boris Johnson visiting Ukrainian troops and getting a chance to throw a mock hand grenade, apparently.
Gosh.
Yeah. Right, the Sun on Sunday, or the Mail on Sunday rather, has Liz Truss vowing to send more migrants to Rwanda if they arrive in the UK illegally.
Yeah, immigration obviously becoming a big part of that battle for the keys to number 10. The Sunday Times, meanwhile, says nearly a fifth of GPs work an average of only 26 hours a week, with many now doing other work, including research and private work. The paper quotes a senior GP saying the job is, quote, no longer doable full-time.
The Daily Star's on Sunday headline is Yabba Dabba Phew, with a picture of Fred Flintstone, with a report that Britain is now hotter than it was in the Stone Age.
Blimey.
There you go. Quick look at some of the stories inside. This is looking at the cost of running your kids around, something that you may well empathise with. I certainly do. Taxi from Dad, that'll be £5,000, please, suggesting that is the cost. That's what parents spend on average, just under £5,000, running their children around. I think that's during the course of the kid's lifetime, but it's a lot of money. And
swiftly getting more and more than £5,000, I'm sure, as petrol prices go up.
And when I say lifetime, obviously that means while they're a child before they grow up and no longer need running around. There's
got to be a cut-off point where they have to ferry themselves about, and perhaps that is when they get a job in hospitality. Yep. Lots of jobs going. 176,000 shortfall in staffing for bars, pubs, restaurant, and that is equal to the population of Wigan. So that is a real crisis for the hospitality industry. And this picture here, if you can have a little look, there we go. It looks like Spider-Man has arrived on somebody's fence, but it's actually a balloon. Kelly Hudson, 46, bought it for her son's birthday, her son's 21st, and it floated up to her window. But it does look, doesn't it, like Spider-Man? He's knocking on the window.
Rather curious, isn't it?
Brilliant.
This is one talking about university costs and the costs of, students living, paying for their own accommodation halls or living in a house share or whatever. Increasingly, the idea is, it's only 3 years, Dad, students to cut costs by swapping halls for homes. So it's suggesting you go to university, if you go to university, close to home, and stay living at home with your parents. I think they do that quite a lot in France anyway. Wouldn't necessarily work, certainly in my case, it's one of them's 200 miles from home. I don't think it would quite work commuting every day, although I'm not sure,
it makes
not
sense.
sure it has many lectures. So.
It makes sense financially, but then that's part of the experience, isn't it?
Yeah,
moving away from home and learning
absolutely.
how to be a grown-up, theoretically. Yeah. This is really interesting. John Lewis shutting off speakers for a quiet hour. So it's going to scrap loudspeaker announcements as part of a trial to help people with sensory overload. The department store is trialling a quiet hour in its Stratford store in London to provide relief for people with epilepsy, Tourette's and tic disorders. And I think particularly post-pandemic, people who are hypersensitive, forced into a place, well, not forced, but if you go into somewhere like a big shopping centre where there's loads of noise, loads of lights, that sensory overload can be really quite triggering.
But it's interesting, isn't it? If you're lucky enough to not be somebody who's affected by that. I didn't even realise they had speakers on in John Lewis because you just don't notice them. But it talks about other supermarkets, I think, doesn't it? And Asda and Morrison's all trying to do similar things. So
I don't like it when you go into a pub or restaurant and there's really loud music. It really puts me off.
Can't talk, can you?
No, exactly.
Can't have a conversation. Someone's just accusing you of being an old lady in my ear.
It's not unreasonable.
It's 6:22 now.